This episode is sponsored by Kerkering Barberio, your trusted partner in tax, audit, and outsourced accounting services. Serving Sarasota, Manatee, and the greater Tampa Bay area for over 50 years, KB helps clients achieve their personal and business goals. Visit kbgrp.com to learn more. In this episode, Patrick Del Medico highlights how he has been able to build and sustain a top-notch corporate culture. This is a topic the Business Observer writes about regularly. To read these stories and more, and subscribe to the Business Observer, go to businessobserverfl.com/subscribe. Hello, and welcome to the Business Observer from the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Patrick Del Medico, a Sarasota-based partner and COO of the Florida and Arizona region for Purmot Insurance. Patrick, welcome, and thanks for coming on today.
Thanks so much for having me, Mark. Great to be with you guys, and always good to connect with you.
Yes, you and I have known each other for quite some time through your career in Sarasota. We're going to get into that a little bit, and a little bit into your leadership lessons. But tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what Purmot Insurance is all about and what your niche is in the community.
Sure. I appreciate the platform to do that. And I guess, everybody always asks, what makes you unique? I think I'll break it down in about four different points. But the first one is, and the most important, we're a full service independent agency. And what that means is we can cover the individual and or the business owner for a variety of ways. Basically, there's no reason for them to look outside of us for any of their insurance or protective needs. So for instance, we have a personal lines division that handles homeowners, auto, umbrella, boats, your toys. We have a commercial lines division that handles all of the business owner aspects. So anything from your property to your business auto to your workers' compensation, any of your liabilities that are involved with your business. We also have a life division that can do everything from key man life on the business side to a personal life. We actually have a Medicare division now in our community and the communities around the United States. It's getting to be a much more difficult element to review, and we've found a really good niche there. And then finally, we have a financial services division that helps with wealth management and 401k. So, best example I can give you is we have a client that's been a longtime friend. We did their business. He asked me, he was a little upside down on his homeowner's insurance, as a lot of people are. We took care of him on his home and his auto, and he was transitioning his business over to his children. And we talked about key man life insurance. So we took care of him in that regard. He had a mother and a father that was getting older. They were struggling with their Medicare. We took care of them. And then eventually he was like, you know what? You've been a great service to me. Do you guys do wealth management? And I turned him over to our financial services division. So it's a great example of how and I hate the word one-stop shop, but it truly took care of that, right?
Keep it in-house for sure.
Yeah. And then, I think, some people can say they do that. And then I think it comes down to choice. There's really not a risk that we cannot write. It sort of makes us pretty special. And we also have niched in some really cool specialty areas. We've created some program niches where we are actually creating a specialty program either around hospitality, manufacturing, municipality, transportation. We actually write the program, and because of that, we can control pricing and some of the coverages that people might not get in the open market. So that truly differentiates us. And then, because that's scale. We have a national presence. We can write in all 50 states. And then, the cliche is it always comes down to, the service aspect, right? So I always say choice, expertise, and then you finish with service. And your service is basically your people, right? And I believe, I'll brag all day long that we're blessed with the greatest talent in the United States as it relates to insurance professionals. And again, if you have a tie in our business, you got to look for the way to break the tie. And we either do it based on, like I just said, our choice, our expertise, our service, and or our people.
Well, and let's talk about the people a little bit. You and I have spoken for stories and in general over the years about building a good culture in the workplace. And you guys do fun things. And we've talked about it, right? You're this insurance company that's supposed to be like uptight or whatever, but it's not. You guys are this fun work environment. What's the work environment like there, and how have you created that?
Yeah, I've started saying this a lot because I do believe it. People always say, culture starts with leadership. I actually am going to go a little opposite. I say the culture is created by the people. And what I mean by that is if you're hiring the right people with the right values, and they all begin to share those same values of the leader, right? Then they start to hold themselves accountable to those values, right? And then it becomes easier to lead, and your culture is built by your team. So it's not a dictatorship; it's truly a team culture. If that makes sense. And I think a lot of people, try to create it from the leadership down, and I don't believe in that. I think it's really sort of a culture built upwards, and because of that, I don't know if you can see some of the stuff that we have on my background behind us, but one of the things that differentiates our culture is we do family first. We truly believe and care. It's not cliche. It's what makes us sort of special. There's a word on our values about fun. Insurance, people say insurance fun, question mark. We make it fun. We do everything from, we have scavenger hunts to, we have cornhole teams. We have all kinds of internal competitions. And then we take it outside the office. We do a ton in the community. And that's fun. Right? We love giving back, and it's activities that take us outside our day-to-day element that keep us bonded and together.
Yeah, you guys, as I recall, even in COVID, when everybody was working from home for a little bit, you guys figured out a way to do competitions among employees to have fun while everybody's stuck in their own little worlds.
We did all kinds of trivia stuff, and we created pod teams, and we would break for 15 minutes during the day, and it got, and again, you want your team to be super competitive, and it kept it light and competitive, and people needed a break, right? So I think we did a pretty good job at that.
Yeah. All right, we're going to shift a little bit outside of insurance because you've had another leadership role in your life, career, and that's high school and youth basketball coach.
Yeah.
Which I always thought was really cool because you and I have talked about that before. Tell us how you got into that. I don't know I forgot if it was related to your kids or not, but tell us how you got into that and what you did.
Yeah, it was. My oldest son I think he was 8 years old at the time. I had been coaching up north before I had moved to Sarasota, and I was sort of a junkie for basketball, junkie for sports, and I saw that the Newtown Rec Center was hosting like this open coaching deal, and I took him down there. It's a really long story, but literally I'm sitting in the stands as this guy is coaching the group, and he calls me out of the stands to help him with doing a drill, and he's like, you know what? You'd be great to take over this program for me. And the next thing I know, I'm running an AAU basketball team literally for the next 10 years.
That's wild.
Yeah, and so I always say it's the single greatest gift that I ever had as a leader. And I say that because it taught me so many lessons that I leverage in the business world today.
Give us some examples.
Probably the one that I lead with, and I lead with here, is that everyone has an inherent passion to feel significant. And the one thing that I learned from coaching is that there's different buttons that push people to feel that way, but it is truly a powerful thing when you can make somebody feel that they matter and that they're special and they're significant, right? So that's one. But two, it also, along with that, it taught me how to be a chameleon. So I taught kids from all walks of life, all education and financial diversity, ethnic diversity. And so you get to learn about their backgrounds, right? And again, I'll use the word family people sometimes as leaders are afraid to do this, but as a leader, I think it's important to understand somebody's background and their family. Let's face it, personal life does affect professional life, right?
100%.
When I was coaching little kids, I wanted to know about mom and dad, brothers, sisters, how they grew up, because you couldn't always coach with the stick. You had to have a carrot a little bit, right? Some kids wanted to be pushed super hard. Other kids would be shut down in heartbeat. And I will tell you, it's the biggest lesson I learned, because I was an absolutely anybody, like if I had 15 of my players in the room right now, they were like, "Coach, you were like the biggest demanding coach we ever had," right? And I would own it all day long. But what I would also say is that as I grew older, and I'll use the word maturity, I matured and I understood that really the benefits of getting to know people's background, and it's just transition right into professional life, right? So even here, shame on me if I don't know the personal life of some of my employees, what's going on in their world. I think, a lot of people would say, "Oh, you don't need to go there." I think it's what keeps us connected. They want to see that you care, so I hope that answers your question.
It does. It's like figuring out that balance between accountability and empathy, right? You have to know what's going on with your team, players, or your employees, and have that empathy, but also hold them accountable. To your point, especially on a basketball team, or really any sports team, they want to be held accountable because hopefully they want to win, right?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because the other piece of like coaching that I learned so well is that, and some people are truly afraid to lead nowadays, okay? And the one thing that resonated with me is that no matter how hard I pushed or how much love I gave, every single player and every single person that works for me here, I think they have an inherent desire to be better. They want goals. They want expectations. They want to be held to those expectations. But here's the kicker. They also want to be rewarded and celebrated, right? And I don't care what anybody says. Like there's some people that are really like, "Oh, be soft." And I think that's also one of the things that's ruining a little bit of where we see just service in general lately. I just think that's maybe that one of the biggest things I learned is that you just can't be afraid to establish goals, expectations, and don't be afraid to follow up on those. Those are difficult conversations, right? But they're necessary. And I did it in basketball and in professional.
Yeah. I'm curious too. It's a personal experience with me. I've brought up before my son on this podcast, Aaron, who's 16 and a theater kid and not really a sports kid. And he actually, we wanted him, he played sports when he was much younger. He played soccer, and I helped the coach. The coach went out of town, and I coached for 2 weeks when Aaron was 5, and that was a horrible experience coaching my own son. It just didn't work. I'm not built that way, frankly, because he wasn't really interested in being a good soccer player. So, how was it coaching? You have 2 sons, right?
Correct. Yeah.
How was it coaching your 2 sons personally on you? How did you sort of deal with that?
The same that you just described.
Yeah.
No, I will tell you the most difficult thing is that when they got into high school, right, you have the whole parent element.
Yeah.
And, you think parents are crazy about their kids' sports,
Right.
Then I think they're even worse or more, I don't know, more committed, right? I will say this. I'll give my sons credit. I was fortunate enough to have 2 hardworking, committed, good teammates, right? And they were fairly skilled. So that made it easy for me to coach. I will also say, and I'll own this, and they'll say, "Oh, heck yeah." I held them to a whole different standard. You
Right.
know,
That's
I was
exactly
not,
it.
I was
Yeah.
not a daddy ball coach guy. I was almost the complete opposite, and believe me, I probably slept in opposite bed of my wife couple of nights after the way I treated my kids on the
Yeah.
court, but I felt that the only way again that I could lead is if I showed the group that there was no favoritism, right? And I think that's critical, right? And people will say, well, how's your relationship now with your kids? I would just tell you that was the most fun that we look back now and we crack up and they make fun of me and my tirades and my daddy speeches and on the car. Cause I would always tell the parents, right? Hey, no speeches for 24 hours, no backseat calls, right? And yet the minute I would get in the car after a game, right? It was like boop, 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 boop. And they're like, hey, Dad, what about that speech?
It's like inherent, right? I remember Aaron again. He didn't love soccer, and it was in the summer, and it was hot, and he didn't want to. We were driving to a game in Lakewood Ranch, and he didn't want to play. And I just pulled out the dad template speech about how you can't quit. You signed up. I don't
Yeah.
care how good you are. You are playing this game. It's the dad template speech. We all have it. That's
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
So what? Whether it's sports or more recently, obviously your career, what do you look for in leaders? What are some of the characteristics that stand out to you as good leaders?
Wow, great question. Obviously, I think people have different interpretations, right? I just read something recently that I think was super powerful. It said, ask yourself a question like if you're looking for one aspect of a great leader, is it a skill or is it an attitude? And the more you dug into it, it's all attitude. And here's my reasoning. You choose to be organized. You choose to be committed. You choose to be passionate. You choose to be empathetic. You choose to be honest. You choose to care. Those are attitudes. They're not necessarily skills, right? You can refine them as skills, right? But you inherently have to have them, I think, first. I hope that makes sense. So I start with that with anybody that I'm either coaching or looking for leadership. I want them to make sure that they have those attitudes first and foremost, right? The second thing, and I'll just say it again, is I think the most powerful thing as a leader is not necessarily knowledge. It's not spreadsheets. It's not numbers. It's connectivity. Can you connect with people on various levels, And I go back to making everybody feel, important or significant. If I don't have a leader that can't do that, then they shouldn't be on my team. And then I love people that are passionate, right? People are like, well, does that mean they're excitable or what? Here's the difference. If you're not passionate, then when you speak, how can I believe or trust in what you are talking about, right? So again, I think you got to look for attitude. I think you got to look for connectivity. I think you got to look for passion. And again, I didn't say one thing about numbers or spreadsheets or product knowledge. I think you start there.
Yeah, for sure. All of that is super important. And in terms of your leadership career, what's a piece of advice that you've received that's really stuck with you about being a better leader, or a lesson you've learned?
Yeah, and wow, another great question. The one that's there's actually two, but the one that is really stuck with me for a long time is be vulnerable.
Yeah.
I spoke on a previous podcast about this, and I don't think people understand how important that is. Like, there's that saying, like, there's no limit the good that you can do if you don't worry about, who gets the credit, right? And so that's one. And then, number two is I always say to myself, weak leaders surround themselves with people that they control. Strong leaders surround themselves that are smarter, better. And again, no doubt, I took that playbook to a whole nother level, right? I'm super blessed with the team that I've established here, and they're just again, they're smarter than me in so many ways. They're more consistent in certain things that they do. They lead a different way than I do, and they're so valuable to me. So that's the vulnerability. And then the other thing is, another thing I always say, leadership is not a behavior. I'm sorry, it's behavior. It's not a position.
Yeah.
So many people, I think the leaders that tell you they're the leader are not the leader.
Yes.
Right.
I was just going to say about being vulnerable. You just be vulnerable. You don't have to say, I'm being vulnerable now. You just do it. Right. And people appreciate that.
Yeah. And I wanted to share maybe for your listeners, like that, I've been sharing this a lot. I've used this as an evaluation of me as a leader. It's a 3-question vulnerability type of analysis. And I've turned to my leadership team. We try to do this on a quarterly basis. And I ask them 3 questions. And they're it's pretty simple. What do you want me to stop doing? What do you want me to start doing? What do you want me to keep doing? And when I've asked them that, you got to make sure that you're asking the people that are going to be, transparent with you, right?
Yeah.
So again, if you're a weak leader, you surround yourself with people that are going to, blow smoke up your, what, right? But if you surround yourself with people that are better than you or honest, you're going to get some really good feedback. And I will tell you what I've learned is I'm not surprised by the feedback, which is powerful to me because I know where my weaknesses are, if that makes sense. And it's helping me reinforce where I need to be better. And so I give my team a lot of credit for being honest. Sometimes I don't want to hear what they, sometimes, but it's helpful, right? And if you don't have that, I can't improve. I always say the best thing about being a leader is you should challenge yourself to continue to improve yourself, right? And the only way you do that is if other people are pushing you and or if you are not afraid, like I said, to be vulnerable, right?
Yeah, you have to open yourself up to that feedback for sure.
Yeah.
So as we're winding down here in the last quarter, the fourth quarter of 2024, what can we expect going back to Shepherd Insurance? Anything that you're particularly excited about? I know the insurance industry has had a rough couple of months in Florida, but you guys obviously have other markets. But what's next for Shepherd Insurance, and what can we look for in 2025?
Yeah, super excited to share. Like when I was going back to the specialty program piece, we recently did an acquisition that is in the specialty program market, where they own about 60% of the United States marketplace. And that program mentality has allowed us to start to create and to evaluate other markets where we can start to create our own platforms outside of the carrier-specific platforms. I'm really excited about that because that'll be a unique offering that'll differentiate us. I also think, the storms here have given us an opportunity to take our game to another level. I always think that with strife comes an opportunity to help people. During the storms, we had a thing that was called, calm is contagious. And I think that's something that we really excelled in during and after Ian. And I think that's what we're excelling in now. So you asked what people can look for. I think they can look for just a steady and calm approach from us, and also being a client advocate. So many people, gosh, Mark, I think you know this, but so many people were devastated, lost everything, and they call us. They're not mad at us. They're just mad at the situation, right? And it's our responsibility to take them down a path to make them hopeful, but to also be realistic, to give them the guidance on what they can do to control. They want to control something in those situations. And that's what we try to help them do, is take control of the situation as best they can and then advocate for them through the process.
Calm is contagious. I love it. All right, Patrick, before we really let you go, I got 3 rapid fire questions for you.
Yeah.
All right. As I said, this is a couple weeks before Thanksgiving. We're recording this, but audiences will be listening to this as we're winding down 2024. So my first question, it's really a two-pronged question. Are you a New Year's resolution guy, person? And do you have a favorite New Year's resolution that you stuck to in your life personally?
Okay, you ready for this?
Yes.
Your leader, Matthew Walsh.
Yes.
Who is actually
owner and co-founder of the Observer Media Group.
Of the Observer Group. I've turned to Matt as a mentor many times. He's helped me through it. He and his family have a tradition that they use a word. I think you do it at the Observer. I was never a New Year's resolution guy until Matt brought that to our roundtable group that we work with. And so I love it, and it's one word that you want to focus on for the following year, and you have to have check-ins. And so I do like that, right?
Do you have your 20? I mean, again, it's early. Do you have your word for 2025 yet?
Well, my one, I'll tell you right now, the one I don't, but the one I've had right now it's an acronym. It's called WIN. It's what's important now.
I like it. WIN. What's important now?
Yeah, I'm trying to discipline myself to get better at prioritizing and not trying to juggle too many things.
Yes.
And it's been tough, and obviously in this year, but it's been a really good one for me to sort of focus and reflect on.
Yeah, I love it. All right, word of the year. Okay, a simpler question, I guess. How many unread text messages do you have right now?
Zero.
It's
probably one of my problems, Mark.
You think that's a problem? That warms my heart that you have zero. That's not a problem.
I answered that pretty quick, but it's actually very honest. I have zero.
Nice. That's one thing you're winning now. You're on top of your text box.
But which I will challenge. I don't know if that's the important thing now, right? So I got to reflect on that, right?
Right. Are you putting time in something that you shouldn't be putting time in?
Bingo. Yeah.
Yes.
But it's better. Yeah.
Question: 2 people, dead or alive, that you'd love to have dinner with.
I'd love to have dinner. Sorry, I get choked up. I'd love to have dinner with my dad again. He was my mentor, my idol. Just taught me so many things.
What was his name?
Vince Del Medico.
Yeah.
Just showed me. We go back to connectivity. He had an incredible way of making everybody he met feel special. And then the other piece that he also told me is never do anything half-ass, but he just beat it into me, not physically, but mentally. I think my attention to detail and my ability to connect with people are those two things that I achieved from him. And then, wow, you caught me off guard on that one. Probably he's alive. I'd love to have dinner with Coach K. It'd be, he's iconic. I've read his books. I love sort of the way he approached the game and his players, the media. It's hard to do what he did for as long as he did at the level he did, and never have negative. He had some negativity, but very little. That's pretty iconic, right?
It is, and credit to him. He even got succession right? He didn't have a whole crazy thing about they knew they had a plan in place, and now they have another good coach. So
no doubt. Hey, can I leave you one thing?
Yes.
This is just sort of, I know you're doing the interview, but I had to share this with you. A week ago, I was at a partner meeting for Shepherd, and we had a speaker come in. His name was Craig McFarland. Would love to have you look him up. He's blind. He was blind at 2. It's a long story. I'm not going to go into all what Craig's done, but it's crazy. He's the first person to ski blind at 50 miles an hour. He won national championships in wrestling. He won national championships in track and field. He cut albums. He's hung with the Bushes. It's crazy stuff, right? But he has this one thing, and he says, no excuses. And, everybody always says no excuses, right? But I asked him a question. I said, how do you tell us a little bit about that? And he goes, this is the best way I can answer that. Has there ever been any good that has come out of an excuse? And when you really reflect back on it, I'm like, wow, that's a pretty powerful statement. So one of my 2025s might be, no excuses, and try to resonate that as much as I can, because it's like, you want to wake up and you work out. Oh, maybe I want another 15 minutes of sleep, right? Or you go home at night and you want to, do something like, well, maybe I'm going to deviate, and do something that I shouldn't be doing, right? Or I'm tired, or I don't have enough time, or can I make that one more call? Maybe I don't want, maybe I want to go home, and, those type of things. So anyway, I just share that with you because I think it's pretty powerful.
No excuses. I love it. Excellent. Well, Patrick Del Medico, COO of the Florida and Arizona region for Purmot Insurance, thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Appreciate you guys. Appreciate your friendship as always, Mark. Love what you do.
Patrick.
Love what the Observer does as well. So thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordon. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.